Hello, everyone. Thank you for waiting. We're a minute late, but we're ready to go. And thanks for everyone joining. Today, we have Dean Gartelos from OTG Consultants. I'm pleased to introduce him. He's been a contributor on several UniVoIP engagements. Dean is a seasoned professional with over 20 years of experience in pricing, negotiating, and leading teams through complex procurements and programs. Dean brings a wealth of strategic insights and operational leadership, particularly in telecom and enterprise voice solutions. Well, Dean, welcome. We're pleased to have you join us on today's chat. Please go ahead and just introduce yourself. I know I didn't do you justice. Maybe you can do a better job.
Dean, thanks so much. Appreciate you having me here. It was certainly my pleasure to be here. And I always say, anytime you and I are on a call, you never have too many Deans in one place. So love it. But yeah, you got it right. OTG Consulting and Western Skies Consulting, powered by OTG, is my firm, and I, part of the lead team at OTG. And we do what you probably would expect, right? We help our clients purchase their technology and really optimize things. Yeah, I've got some very rich experience in the public sector. You mentioned with pricing and strategy and negotiations and things of that nature. But leverage really my time now in this space, helping clients and leveraging those relationships and things along those lines. You already know this, I know Ray and your team, right? The only thing you guys should know about me is my only real goal is to leave you better than I found you, right? Without regard to whether we do business, because business shows up in all the right ways if we communicate clearly, if we have the right kinds of conversations. But if I can help in some other way with a client or somebody else, I'm happy to do so, right? So it's kind of a key part of kind of who I am and what I bring. And I found, rising tides lifts all boats, right? And I'm just trying to be part of that rising tide along with you, Dean, and your team and the other folks that I have the pleasure of working with along the way.
Thank you. And so what key factors do you believe have contributed to your success as a technology consultant?
I'll tell you first about what helped me fail at it. As I started on this journey, it's been some 8 years ago, a little bit more than 8 years ago. I viewed it as a new activity, right? I've never really been a sales guy in my career, unless you go back to my days, waiting tables at the diner, right? And so when I started this journey, I thought, well, what does a sales guy do? And I tried to, I don't know what I tried to do, but it was really awkward. It was ineffective, and it didn't yield any business. And I had a very good conversation with a good friend of mine. We were talking one evening, got together, and he asked what was going on. And I kind of talked about some of the management consulting and then this technology thing. And I got all awkward about it. He goes, man, whoa, I'm just going to interrupt you. He said, I know you, I love you, I trust you, but I'm not doing business with you, right? I'll do business with that other guy all day long, right? Because I was talking about some of the things that I felt more comfortable with, right? About how to go about breaking down complex procurements and some of the management consulting things that I've done. And that moment is when I kind of pivoted to just be that guy in any activity, whether it's a technology consulting opportunity or anything else, right? Even down to, I talking hockey with people and I've coached over the years and stuff like that. And so what's contributed from that pivot of failure towards the trajectory I'm on, and I don't know that I'm ready to declare victory of any sort, but I like the business I'm doing and I'm looking to grow and things like that. But it comes down to just there's 3 things that I think are really important. Authenticity, right? Be who you are. Have an outcome orientation, right? I like to solve problems. It's kind of how I'm wired. And then listen, right? Seek to understand, right? And then to be understood. So those 3 things, right? Be authentic, solve problems, and just listen and understand the environment. And those 3 things kind of have grown into the process I go through today with clients. And what I mean by that is, right, it's really about assessing needs and getting an understanding what a client's requirements are, and then distilling the market down to something that meets those needs. I think sales guys have this vendor view of the world, right? They have a capability that they need to figure out how to get somebody to buy, and that happens and it works. But I flip it the other way, right? And I get an understanding of requirements, then match those capabilities up to a more fully fit for my clients. And we've seen great success working together in that way, right? With what we've been able to accomplish with UniVoIP with those clients.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really happy that you bring that up. I'm a recovering engineer, so I struggle with that. And so when somebody starts talking about XYZ technology, my response to that is always, what are you trying to accomplish?
That's
Let's
right.
talk about what you're trying to do, as opposed to which technology to use. We'll figure that out, you know, on the back end. But what are we trying to do? And I think you hit the nail on the head by just talking about outcomes instead of a specific technology. Um, so, how do you maintain strong relationships and trust with your clients?
I think it's never an always on type activity. And what I mean by that is it's just like anything else. These relationships and credibility are a byproduct of behaviors, not something you just get and hold on to. And so I believe the same thing about success. And, we can talk about that a little bit if we ever want to, but I think it's just remaining engaged, right? Having a cadence for the way that we interact, and with some frequency, not too much and not too little, and finding what that is, because it varies by client and by business type. But I think that's part of it, having kind of a methodical way to be engaged and involved. I think it also has to do with what I said a few minutes ago, right? My grandmother used to say, you have two ears and one mouth, right? So maybe you should listen more than you speak. And I think that is, especially at the front end, right? Getting to learn about what their organization does, what they need, what their challenges are, and really and back to seek to understand. And then I like to ask questions. That Socratic method, right? I think of working through things. Getting to the business outcome, not the pain point. I think all of those things, and I think over time, a client really starts to understand and believe when I say, I'm really here on your behalf, right? My agenda is your agenda, right? And I get that, that's a place for me that's easy because I'm agnostic from a solution standpoint, right? I don't have a product that I'm trying to get somebody to buy. I have clients that have needs that I will help find an answer to meet those needs. And I think once they really understand that model, you kind of see the light come on in different phases through that relationship building. I rambled there a little bit. Sorry, Dean. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It really does. Just out of curiosity,
Sure.
oftentimes I hear, one way to get trust is to get in front of someone. And I want to know your take on, prior to the pandemic and after the pandemic, and with all of the technologies that have advanced, we're using it today. How often do you actually physically meet your clients today? Has there been a change?
There certainly has been. The short answer to that question is often as possible. Okay. But it's far less than was ever the case before the plague, right? And I think one of the good things to come out of that was this recognition that you can have presence with somebody virtually, but just like we've been in meetings in the room with people that you see them staring at the walls or looking at their watch or their phone, they're not present. And so that's a danger of virtual meetings, probably amplified, because there's no shortcut to building a relationship and maintaining it. It takes effort in whether it's personal or professional, and it takes presence. So I think it has changed. I do a ton more virtually. The need to actually be in a client office is, gosh, if it's not zero, it's awfully close. But I do like to do it as often as possible because I think I'm kind of a social guy anyway. So I kind of like face to face, but I have clients that I've never met in real life. they're across the country, and if ever we're in the same place at the same time, we'll get together, but it has not hindered our relationship and our productivity together.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it's probably true across the board. We do a lot more customer meetings, digitally online than we ever did before. I think maybe you'd have a phone call, but eventually you'd see your clients in person, because that was really the only way to see the color of their eyes or what have you, right? So
I like to say, must be present to win, right? And I think that's true. I just think that presence is not as physically demanded as it might have been even 5 years ago, 6 years ago, certainly 10 or 15 years ago. I think presence now is an interactive valuation as much as a physical one.
So do you think it's improved the number of opportunities that you might be able to get in front of?
Certainly.
So you can do more than you could, 7 years ago.
Oh, it's a time function, right? If you're not driving from meeting to meeting, suddenly you get an extra meeting in what was drive time, right? I mean, for sure. And I would say even in those times where it's not back to back and I'm leveraging that commute time, suddenly it frees up your time for other endeavors, not just business ones. I think there's a work-life cycle that's incredibly important. Because I think as you're happy and successful at work, you're happy and successful at home. And as you're happy and successful at home, you're more productive and successful at work. And so not having those commute hours, and literally it's hours, right? Anybody's been on the road trying to meet people, right? You're able to be more present kind of in every aspect of it, right? As the kids get home from school, or as they're getting out the door in the morning, or with my spouse, or even with friends, right? The ability to meet for lunch with people and just socially, right? That's something that the pandemic really impacted, was the ability of social interaction, right? And it's not uncommon for that social interaction to find business either for me or for whoever, buddy I'm meeting with, but it's still that social interaction. I think the time that the virtual capability has established for everybody is a game changer.
Yeah. So any other challenges you face in your consulting work that's evolved over the past decade?
Yes. I mean, I think there's a long list of challenges in opportunities. I think I try to see them that way. And I don't think it's semantical. I think you catch what you fish for, right? So if you talk about challenges, you're going to keep finding challenges. If you talk about those things that maybe are challenging as opportunities, I think you'll look to find more opportunities and they'll show up. And so I try to be very deliberate with the way I think and the way that I speak. But I'd say, yes, I think early on for me, it was people are so used to being sold to, right? Executives are bombarded by cold calls or warm calls or people that say, gosh, I can do everything that you need, right? And so how do you have a voice that's different than other people that are trying to get in front of the same individuals that I am? And, it takes some time to establish that credibility, and interpersonal credibility from a cold start is very difficult because an executive is very conditioned to arm's length anybody they come across that talks about trying to help their business, right? Because they're inundated. And so I focus much more so on, and everybody, this isn't magic. You heard it here first, folks, right? Introductions from your network are valuable, right? Everybody knows that. I think it's exceedingly true because you can watch, and I've had this experience over and over, you watch a client or prospective client's mind engage with the path that I have that I can bring to the table for them versus an engagement with a sales individual from an organization. Now, salespeople aren't bad, and I'm not trying to hint at that at all, right? Salespeople are wonderful. I worked with them my whole life as an old pricing guy, but it's a little bit different engagement because truly, I don't have an agenda. I don't have a product. I have a result that I can help my client achieve. And so one of the challenges for me has been how to communicate that effectively wherever the starting point is. If it's a warm introduction, it's a lot easier, right? Because they're already predisposed to want to have the conversation and get to know me. If it's, and I meet people, it happened last week at Cold Stone. I heard somebody talking about, a business they just started. I said, I just heard you. Congratulations. That's great. What kind of business? And you start to have that conversation and say, hey, here's what I do for a living. I help companies with their technology. I don't know if you have a need. You probably have it squared away, but if you don't, I'm a consultant. That's what I do. I operate like a broker. And I gave a little bit of my spiel. And she said, oh my God, yeah, great. Can I have your info? So I gave it to her. And so I'm helping her set up her technology. But it's just being aware, right, of people that talk and being comfortable enough to open that conversation. And I like to say, without being salesy about it. Somebody will say, gosh, you're a sales guy, Dean, no matter what you say, because you're trying to get people to whatever. And I'm like, yeah, there's probably some truth to that. But I'm not about getting a deal done. I'm about developing that relationship and getting that business outcome for a client.
Yep, that resonates with me. Thank you. So you and I have had this conversation about Microsoft Teams phone system. Our mission is to be the best voice provider for Microsoft Teams. And I really do believe that if an organization is using Microsoft Teams for messaging, collaboration, meetings, file sharing, then there is no good reason to use a third-party phone system. I think you can be more productive. You can reduce your IT overhead costs. If not just reduce costs, from the top line. So how do you see the market shifting from legacy UCaaS or VoIP solutions to Microsoft Teams phone system?
Yeah, I think it is a logical, not just logical, practical migration, I'll call it, or evolution is probably a better word. You said it, and certainly UniVoIP's in this business and recognized it early. And I tip the cap to you, because I think what you've built at UniVoIP is special in the market. In a lot, in a sea of fish saying, yeah, we do Teams, right? But do ya, and how do ya? And I think you probably view it as a tool to wedge your UCaaS solution in, right? And that's certainly been true over the last 10 years. Probably the last couple of years, people are starting to talk about more of a native Teams experience. And I think that that's necessary, and they see the writing on the wall. But my view is truly, at whatever point, and I don't know what this point is. I think there's a regulatory thought around this, right? But there's a point where Microsoft really is just the phone company. And I think because it fits so well into the rest of the business ecosystem that companies are in and operating in. And so it's a no-brainer. I think the need to have this separate UCaaS solution is fading more and more, because what are the benefits that you get out of that? Collaboration, Teams is right there. The ability to have transcription and voicemail and all the things that were kind of cool when it came out are like, well, yeah, that's present today. The ability to host meetings and presentations and something like this, right? It's like, well, yep, that's there too. And by the way, it's not a new ecosystem. You have to learn how to operate it. And so it is. Go ahead.
There is something to be said. There's many drivers, right? We talked about there's a potential cost savings, but more than that, it's the user productivity by having one app that brings everything together reliably anywhere, right? Also, reducing your IT overhead costs, and also increasing your security posture, because you're not using a secondary platform that you have to authenticate, but you're really just authenticating in one place, and you're not vulnerable in having these information in multiple platforms. Everything is in your intra ID. But here's the other driver that I think oftentimes gets missed. What about the future? If your conversation, when you talk about artificial intelligence, it's basically leveraging the data to make sense of your data. Well, if you have everything in one place that's secure, that's easy to manage, including real-time voice, it opens the door with a whole slew of AI products that are coming. What's your view of that? Having all of your information in a place that can be analyzed by a bot more easily than having all these disparate places where information is.
Yeah, I mean, the future is here, right? And I think you make a good point about that consolidated data. I think the source of truth is critical in leveraging any sort of tool or analytics. And so, yes, bringing all that into that Microsoft ecosystem is a logical evolutionary step. I think the other thing is, you know, you notice that all that path I was talking about didn't mention cost at all, because most businesses, everybody's cost conscious, right? Most businesses are willing to pay for a tool that makes them efficient and productive. And so, like, that cost thing is also there. But, with Microsoft, I also always think, well, yeah, the cost is low right now, but what's going to happen at some point in the future? So I try not to think about cost as the driver for these. I think having that data consolidated, being able to leverage the AI tools that become more and more effective. I think, yeah, I'm right on that page with you, Dean. I think the AI is an interesting, and everybody has an opinion on this, and there's experts, and to me, it's about achieving with speed some outcomes in analytics to help inform decisions and activities. So, there's a more productive application of human endeavor. And I think having that data source together, having it unified, right? That's a logical step to it. It's not the only way to do it, but it's a great path for it, and it's a great starting point, because if you're on this ecosystem, right, fewer variables, right, to
Yeah.
impact.
Yeah. I know we were working on a project with one of your customers. As a solutions partner and an operator of Microsoft Voice, we complement a lot of things that Microsoft does. Right? We make it easy for onboarding and all of that. I want you to maybe share a story of your recent customer that needed to have some advanced reporting, and what we had to do to get to the bottom of it. I mean, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out exactly what they wanted to get, but that's I want you to tell that story.
Yeah, no, I'd love to, and I'd love to talk about two customers. We'll start with the fast one, the one that you didn't mention, because I love this about the UniVoIP engagement and support. I had another client that wanted a Teams voice system. One of their friends' companies was using a competitor for their UCaaS. They said, I really want to talk to these guys. And I said, okay, well, we want to do Teams voice. Okay, great. I think we ought to have this conversation with UniVoIP. No, I really like these guys. My buddy's happy, but they say they do Teams voice. Okay. So we did. They purchased that. And over a period of, it was a 3-year. Basically, the shortcut to the end is they struggled there. We've migrated them since to UniVoIP for their Teams voice. And their comment to me was, where have these guys been all my life? And I'm like, we had this conversation, right? And they said, the CEO is a good guy, and he owned it. He's like, I know, you tried to tell me. And so it's like, not all Teams voice players are created equal. And the things that you guys have done to automate and simplify that process and support and all the different things, it's alive and well. And I had a great apples to apples comparison with somebody that was trying to do it elsewhere and then get to do it with you guys. Fantastic. So that's the short one. The other one that you mentioned, yes, they had some CDR needs, call detail reporting needs. And, that is not something that Microsoft solution quite is squared away with. it's an evolving item. And what I love about what happened there is it's a commitment by the team to find an answer and to resolve, right? There's a lot of providers that I've worked with in lots of different technologies where it's kind of like, sorry, it's just, yeah, that's really hard. It's just not something we do or can solve or whatever. And it was great to see the team really dig in and say, okay, what are the needs? What are the requirements? Here's what we're developing. Here's some maybe tool sets that are available to support that need. And it was a fabulous collaboration. And it's back to that business outcome, Dean. I think it wasn't talking about product. It wasn't talking about tool. It was like, what is the need here? And they use it to track some of their sales activities, right? And that business outcome was hindering their sales productivity because they weren't reconciling call activities. And so, that partnership that I think we have together between me and your team, and then that partnership that is forged with the client, right? There's just no substitute for it. It would have been easy, although not good, to say, well, boy, it's just not there quite yet.
Yeah, I mean, the data is there. It's just,
the capability is not there yet.
That's
I'm sorry, that's what I mean. How to mine that data, right? How to access it in a way that is the way that this client needed it, not just the way that it's done.
Yeah, yeah. And it was great. They actually, as you know, their compensation to their sales reps is based partially on the number of calls that they make. So it is crucially important for them to get every call detail, whether it was transferred or not transferred, and how they made the call. And so, one user probably made 100 calls, and he was complaining that he doesn't see one of the calls that he made. There's 100 out of 99, and we dug in and we found out why that call wasn't showing, and that's because it was actually transferred to him and it was being associated with someone else. And so anyway, it was great. It was very gratifying to actually get to a point to a customer that scrutinizes and really goes in deep with everything, and to get them to finally said, yes, this is what we were looking for. And
yeah,
and that was great.
It really was. And I think now we can talk about why maybe they have that plan in place. And we'll talk more about that. I'm trying to talk to their leadership about, what are we incenting? Because I say this to clients all the time, and as part of my kind of explanation of how and what I do, right? It's not a transaction, right? I don't confuse action with productivity, right?
Yeah.
Let's find a problem and solve it, not just swirl ourselves into something, right? And but anyway, that's a separate conversation.
I didn't want to question that. That's what they wanted, and that's what we're going to give them, right? I think once they have that, now they have all the numbers. So I'm hoping that they're going to be able to build a historical, outcome based on activity, right? If I put this much activity, one of the things that was surprising to them that they didn't know that we're going to get is the average talk time of outbound calls. So now we can tell them, they made this many calls, but their average talk time is this. And so now they need to go in and find out which one of those two approaches is more successful from an outcome perspective, right? Talking to customers more or talking less, calling more. So that information is available to them. And can you imagine if you can have a bot in AI to be able to analyze these in real time and provide feedback?
Absolutely. And I think you're right. It was eye-opening, and it's fun to start to have that kind of management conversation with them about, unintended consequence of incentive, right? Lots of dials, but not a lot of conversations, right? Those things start to come out.
Well, Dean, listen, I've enjoyed this conversation. We should do it more often.
Yes.
We've already 1 minute over. I'm sorry we don't have any time for questions, but I really want to thank you again for participating in this and for being a valued partner of UniVoIP. We look for, to do great things together. And again, thank you.
Dean, thanks so much. Appreciate your partnership very much. Look forward to big things together. And if you or anybody want to find me, succeedwithdean.com is a great way to do that. So
You
if
took
there's any
that
questions,
that URL before I did, didn't you? Dean.com, I love it.
yeah, succeedwithdean.com.
Got it.
But thanks, Dean. Appreciate you. Have a great day.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.